What if everything you thought you knew about arrow penetration for bow hunting was just scratching the surface?
Yeah, imagine that.
Imagine a lighter arrow outperforming a much heavier one. Or maybe a low-energy setup delivering a deeper punch than a high-energy one. Sounds completely counterintuitive, right?
Totally does. Goes against a lot of common thinking.
You, our brilliant listener, sent us the source material. And our mission here on the Deep Dive is to take that stack of sources, articles, notes. In this case, it's Dr. Ed Ashby's pivotal 2008 study update, part 5. And we're going to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. We're going on a real deep dive into the fascinating world of arrow penetration science.
Right.
Focusing specifically on what really makes an arrow effective out there in the field.
And today, we're really peeling back the layers of Dr. Ashby's, well, incredibly detailed analysis of arrow performance.
Yeah.
Our particular focus is going to be on the surprising capabilities of what he calls Ultra EFOC arrows.
Ultra EFOC. Extreme front of center, right?
Exactly, where a significant chunk of the arrow's weight is way up front. And we'll also be digging deep into the focal point paragraphs in this update. They offer some truly groundbreaking insights.
Okay, focal points, got it.
And this isn't just, armchair theory. It's grounded in extensive real-world testing on huge animals.
Right, like buffalo.
Yeah, Asian buffalo. So it offers critical insights for everyone, from novices to really experienced bow hunters looking to maybe optimize their setups.
So get ready to challenge some maybe deeply held assumptions and gain a truly well-informed understanding of what actually drives arrow penetration. Let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's kick things off with the big question Dr. Ashby poses right at the start of his Part 5 update. Can a lighter arrow genuinely outperform much heavier ones?
It's a bold question to start with.
It is. He begins by introducing a 655-grain Ultra EFOC arrow. It boasts an impressive 31.4% FOC and was tested with an 82-pound longbow. Sounds like a pretty potent setup, but still 655 grains.
It's not super light, but definitely lighter than what many think of for huge game. And the first comparison in this study pits this 655-grain Ultra EFOC arrow against a whole group of arrows.
Okay, what kind of group?
These range from 650 up to 725 grains, and they covered normal, high, and even extreme FOCs, so a real mix.
And they all use the same broadhead.
Yep. Critically, all arrows in this initial test used the same 190-grain grizzly broadhead, and they were shot broadside into the thorax of Asian buffalo at 20 yards. Standardized testing.
Okay, but here's a really critical piece of context from the source, right?
Yeah.
The Ultra EFOC arrow. It was tested exclusively on massive-bodied Asian buffalo bulls.
Right, the biggest category.
The biggest ones. Conversely, that all arrows comparison group included everything from adult cows up to trophy bulls.
So potentially smaller, easier to penetrate animals in that mix.
Exactly. It gives a potential size advantage, or maybe a less challenging target, to that all arrows group. Ashby even notes from earlier parts of his study that just rib thickness alone can vary significantly, like 18% between a young adult bull and a mature one.
So the Ultra EFOC was definitely facing the tougher test subjects from the get-go.
Right.
And yet, despite having lower mass and being tested on these larger animals, the Ultra EFOC arrow showed what Ashby calls a decided advantage in penetration.
A decided advantage. How much are we talking?
Its average penetration was a staggering 37.9% greater than that of the all arrows group.
Well, almost 40%.
Yeah, think about that. Almost 40% deeper. And even more impressive, the maximum penetration achieved by any arrow in that heavier all arrows group was actually slightly less than the average penetration shown by the Ultra EFOC group.
Get out. So the best of the heavier group couldn't even match the average of the lighter Ultra EFOC.
Precisely. This wasn't just a fluke. It's a profound finding right off the bat that challenges that whole heavier is always better mantra.
Okay, that is impressive. But Ashby wasn't done there, was he? He then upped the ante.
He did. Comparing the 655-grain Ultra EFOC to an even heavier class of arrows.
Heavier still.
Yeah, those ranging from 725 grains all the way up to 900 grains.
Wow, so now we're talking about giving up a lot of weight. 70 grains, maybe even up to 245 grains lighter for the Ultra EFOC.
A significant difference. Same testing conditions, same 190 grizzly broadhead, and again, that all arrows group included a mix of test animal sizes. And guess what?
The trend continued.
The trend absolutely continued. Even giving up all that arrow mass, the Ultra EFOC arrow still averaged 27.8% more penetration than this much heavier group.
Incredible. So weight isn't the king we thought it was.
Not in isolation, it seems. And that heavier all arrows group here again included normal, high, and extreme FOC arrows, and their bone breaching rate was still 100%. But the Ultra EFOC just kept going deeper, more consistently.
Okay, so the Ultra EFOC is clearly defying expectations. It's holding its own against heavier arrows. But how does it stack up against the legends, the, classic super heavy buffalo arrows?
Oh, yes, the big guns, those over 900 grains.
These are the setups hunters often think of as the gold standard for truly massive games.
Definitely. So Ashby's study takes on this direct comparison next. These super heavy arrows, they averaged 945.1 grains.
Almost 1,000 grains.
Yep. Often featured heavy wood shafts, or maybe double shafts, like grizzly sticks. And importantly, 80% of them had an EFOC between 19% and 20%. Still high, but not Ultra EFOC territory.
Okay, so how did the 655 Ultra EFOC do against these?
Well, in this comparison, the minimum and maximum penetrations were, and Ashby uses the term, virtually identical between the Ultra EFOC and the super heavy group.
So closer now.
Closer. The super heavy group did show an 8.2% increase in average penetration and a more significant 26.2% increase in median penetration.
Okay, so the heavies pulled ahead slightly on average and median.
Right, and they also had a 22.2% increase in average impact force, basically momentum, the punch. So Ashby calls this the Ultra EFOC's first apparent penetration match.
A match? Okay, but wait, there's that crucial point again. The test animals.
Exactly, you nailed it. The animal size difference still needs consideration. The Ultra EFOC was consistently used on those larger, massive-bodied bulls.
Whereas the super heavy group included males and females, potentially smaller ones.
Correct. And this subtle but critical difference in the testing conditions really sets the stage for the next part, which Ashby calls the focal points. This is where things get really eye-opening.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. This is where Ashby provides insights that, well, they could redefine what we thought we knew. What happens when you totally level the playing field? Make the animal size absolutely comparable.
Bingo. This is focal point 1 and 2 in the study, and it's exactly that. Ashby segregates the over 900 grain arrow group to include only shots taken on massive-bodied bulls.
So a true apples-to-apples comparison, finally.
Exactly. Animals of comparable size to those the Ultra EFOC arrow was tested on, and it turns out only one particular super heavy arrow setup actually met this really strict criteria for a direct comparison.
This one setup. Which one?
It was a 967.6 grain arrow, a Grizzly Sticks Big 5 shaft, 19.8% EFOC, still using that 190 grain Grizzly broadhead.
Okay, so nearly 970 grains versus the 655 Ultra EFOC, both on massive bulls. What happened?
This is just phenomenal, really. When comparing shots on animals of body size, the 312 grain lighter, 31.4% Ultra EFOC arrow's penetration is, well, it's near identical to the heavier 19.8% EFOC arrow.
Near identical, after a 300 grain weight difference.
Near identical. The average penetration difference between the two was only 4.6%. Median penetration differed by just 7.2%.
That's tiny, insignificant almost.
Pretty much. Tipped with identical broadheads, Ashby concludes this puts the terminal performance of the 655 grain Ultra EFOC arrows very near that of a classic super heavy buffalo arrow having 19.8% EFOC.
Wow. Just wow. A difference of over 300 grains in arrow weight, yet basically the same penetration when you equalize the conditions. That's astounding.
It really is. But naturally, this raises an important question, the one people might immediately jump to.
Which is?
Was it just the speed? Did the lighter arrow's higher velocity or kinetic energy make up the difference? This is Ashby's focal point 3.
The KE argument. Okay, what did he find?
He provides a direct and I think really powerful counterargument. The difference in impact velocity between these two specific arrows, the 655 Ultra EFOC and the 967 EFOC, was only 31 feet per second.
31 FPS. Okay, noticeable, but maybe not huge.
And the difference in impact kinetic energy, get this, a mere 1.04 foot-pounds.
1 foot-pound.
Seriously.
Seriously. Like Ashby puts it in perspective, it's like the energy of a small apple dropping about a foot. It's an absolutely minuscule difference.
So that tiny difference can't possibly explain the near-identical penetration. Exactly. Far too small if KE were the primary driver. And he even refers back to his Part 3 update, where he showed that with near-identical profile arrows of equal mass, a 65.3% difference in impact, KE, made virtually no difference in outcome penetration.
Okay, that just demolishes the KE argument in this context. It challenges a core belief many bow hunters hold.
It absolutely does.
Need even more convincing. Because Ashby provides it, right?
Yeah.
In focal points 4 and 5, he points back to previous parts of his study again.
Yep, digging into penetration comparisons between EFOC and Ultra EFOC arrows shot from a 40-pound recurve bow against much heavier bows.
A 40-pound recurve. That really highlights the energy difference.
Hugely. What's truly fascinating here is that every arrow from that 40-tag recurve was traveling slower and carried less kinetic energy than any arrow in the heavier bow groups, the 70-tag and 82-tag bows, obviously, right?
Of course. Less energy, lower speed.
Yet, overall, their performance equaled or even exceeded that of the faster, higher-impact KE arrows from the heavier bows.
Equaled or exceeded. From a 40-pound bow.
Yes. And specifically, when comparing bone-breaching shots, the same broadhead arrow groups from the heavier bows carried anywhere from 46.4% to 69.5% greater impact kinetic energy.
Okay, significantly more energy.
But they consistently showed lower average penetration.
Lower penetration with more energy. How does that even work?
It's an inverse correlation in these tests.
Okay.
The higher velocity, higher KE arrows showed lower average penetration in these critical comparisons involving bone.
Mind blown. This is a total game changer for understanding aerodynamics.
It really makes you rethink things.
So, okay, after all these complex comparisons, all these direct refutations of common assumptions, what does it all mean? Put it simply for us.
Okay, bottom line. Clearly, for arrows that have perfect flight and are above a certain threshold mass, so they're not ridiculously light to begin with.
Right, there's a minimum needed.
Right. For those arrows, arrow design factors are the preeminent determining factors of arrow penetration. Things like EFOC, like broadhead design.
Because how the arrow is built matters more than just its speed or weight.
Exactly. They show a greater degree of effect than either kinetic energy or impact force, momentum. It's how the arrow is designed to cut, to displace tissue that truly dictates deep penetration, not just how hard it hits.
But momentum and mass aren't irrelevant, are they?
No, definitely not. And Ashby adds that important caveat. When arrow design factors and arrow flight are equal, then yes, a change in the arrow's momentum does correlate with penetration.
Okay, so if you have two identically designed arrows, the one with more momentum penetrates more.
Correct. And critically, momentum derived from arrow mass contributes more, percentage-wise, to outcome penetration than does momentum derived from increased arrow velocity.
Ah, so mass does have an edge over speed when all else is equal. But design trumps both.
Precisely. Design factors are king, but if designs are equal, mass-driven momentum is better than speed-driven momentum for penetration.
That's a really powerful takeaway. Now, for those listening, maybe someone looking for a highly effective, maybe easier to tune, kind of off-the-shelf EOC heavy game arrow. Does Ashby give any pointers there?
He does offer a practical suggestion based on the comparisons. He points to the setup of that over 900 grain arrow from the direct like-sized animal comparison.
The 967 grain one.
Yeah. A tapered grizzly stick shaft, brass insert, 125 grain steel broadhead adapter, and that 190 grain grizzly broadhead. He suggests it's a proven performer that doesn't require the deep dive into tuning Ultra EFOC yourself, which, let's be honest, can be more complex.
Right. Ultra EFOC tuning isn't always straightforward, so that's a solid baseline option. Okay, so we've established FOC is huge, design is huge. What other major factor contributes to penetration? Maybe even more than weight or speed.
Now we get to the pointy end. Broadhead mechanical advantage, or MA.
Mechanical advantage. Basically how efficiently the broadhead cuts and wedges tissue apart.
You got it. And the findings here are really compelling. Ashby's study then compared that 655 grain Ultra EFOC arrow against all single-blade broadheads used on super heavy 900-plus grain arrows shot from the 82-tag longbow.
So not just the grizzly anymore.
Nope. This 900-plus's grain group now included a wide variety of single-blade heads, things like Ribtech, Outback Supreme, Silver Flame, Zwickey Eskimo, Magnus II, a whole bunch.
But still single blades, and presumably good quality ones.
Yes. Importantly, it explicitly excluded wide-cut, low mechanical advantage heads and only included shots where the broadhead remained structurally intact. No fail heads in this dataset.
Okay, so the Ultra EFOC versus heavy arrows with various good single-blade heads. What happened?
The key finding here is fascinating, maybe even counterintuitive again. Despite the all single blades group having a much higher average mass, 112 grains on average.
Over 1,000 grains.
And 22.4% more impact force, more punch. The lighter 655 grain Ultra EFOC arrows actually showed greater average penetration.
Greater. Even against all those different heads?
By 29.5% on average and 13.2% greater median penetration.
Whoa, that's a reversal from the comparison with just the grizzly and the super heavies.
Exactly. It shows that while the grizzly is a high MA head, limping all single blades together, even good ones, diluted the performance of the super heavy group compared to the highly optimized Ultra EFOC grizzly combo.
So some of those other single blades weren't as efficient as the grizzly.
It seems so. Ashby even notes that some super heavy arrows with certain single blades failed to penetrate the entrance rib if the broadhead design had issues, like maybe open ring ferrules or protruding lugs, even if the head itself didn't break.
Interesting. It really drives home that not all single blade broadheads are created equal, even structurally sound ones. Design details matter.
Hugely. And this makes a very pointed statement about the overwhelming influence of your broadhead choice. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the study directly illustrates what Ashby calls the effect of broadhead MA on penetration.
How does it illustrate that?
By comparing the super heavy arrows equipped with the high MA 190 grain grizzly against those super heavy arrows equipped with single blades having a lower MA than the 190 grizzly.
Isolating the MA variable on those heavy arrows.
Yeah.
Smart. And the impact.
The impact is enormous. This analysis shows a difference in likely outcome penetration that's average and median combined of a massive 37.9% to 43.3%, purely based on the broadhead's mechanical advantage.
Just do it. Based on the head's efficiency, nearly 40% difference.
Or more. It's an incredible margin for what is essentially just the tip of your arrow. It hammers home that broadhead design is arguably the most critical component for penetration, especially when things get tough.
Wow, so this raises a really important point for you, the listener, to consider, right?
Absolutely. The larger the game you hunt or the lighter the draw weight of the bow you use, the more absolutely paramount your selection of broadhead becomes.
Because you need maximum efficiency.
You need every advantage you can get. There truly is no such thing as overkill in bow hunting. On a perfect hit, sure, almost anything works. We know that.
Right, through the ribs, no major bone.
But on those bad hits hitting heavy bone, marginal angles your arrow and especially your broadhead setup becomes absolutely critical. It's the difference between a clean, humane kill and a wounded, non-recovered animal.
Your broadhead choice is basically your ethical insurance policy.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, given everything we've heard, FOC matters hugely, design matters hugely, broadhead MA is critical. How does the 655 grain Ultra EFOC stack up against other known high-performance setups from Ashby's wider study? Beyond just those buffalo arrow comparisons, does it hold its own against the very best identified previously?
That's a great question, and yes, he does make those comparisons. One really fascinating one pits the 655 grain Ultra EFOC against a 765 grain 27% EFOC. This one was shot from a 70-pound longbow.
Okay, 765 grains, still EFOC, but from a lighter bow.
Right, and what's remarkable here is that both arrows had virtually equal impact force. Their momentum was almost identical. 0.474 slug feet second for the Ultra EFOC versus 0.477 for the 765 grain EFOC arrow.
So, same bunch.
Basically the same punch. And both arrows also use the identical 190 grain grizzly broadhead. So it's a really clean comparison of a heavier EFOC versus a lighter Ultra EFOC with the same momentum and head.
And that 70 tag Bose EFOC arrow was no slouch, right? It performed well in other tests.
Exactly. It was already identified as a high-performance setup, having significantly bested other groups in previous studies.
So how did the lighter Ultra EFOC do against it?
Despite being 101 grains lighter, the Ultra EFOC arrow averaged 12.1% greater penetration.
Greater penetration even with the same momentum.
Yep. And it maintained that 100% bone breaching rate on massive buffalo bulls, even though, again, it was tested on slightly larger animals on average.
And this reinforces the point about kinetic energy too, doesn't it? Because the Ultra EFOC from the 82 tag Garrett bow would have had slightly more KE than the 765 Garrett from the 70 tag bow, despite equal momentum.
Precisely. The Ultra EFOC had about 38.6 foot-pounds. The 765 Garrett EFOC had about 33.8. So more KE, equal momentum, better penetration for the Ultra EFOC design in this case. It again points away from KE as the primary driver.
Okay, what other comparisons did he make?
Well, building on that, the study then compared the Ultra EFOC versus all other structurally intact above threshold EFOC arrows from that same 82-2 stag longbow, but only those that also use the 190 grain grizzly, trying to isolate FOC difference more directly.
Gotcha. So Ultra EFOC versus standard EFOC, same bow, same head.
Right. And astonishingly, the average penetration difference between these two groups was only 0.4%.
0.4%. Basically identical average penetration.
Almost identical average. Median penetration differed by just 5.4%. So very, very close performance overall. But here's the truly remarkable part, I think.
What's that?
The penetration range, the difference between the minimum depth achieved and the maximum depth achieved was far more consistent for the Ultra EFOC arrow.
Ah, less variation in performance.
Much less. So Ashby concludes its performance is not only essentially equal to that of heavier, matching broadhead EFOC arrows from the same bow, its performance is actually more consistent.
And consistency is huge in bow hunting. You want predictable results.
Absolutely invaluable in the field.
Okay, so it matches or slightly beats other high-performing EFOC setups in consistency. But finally, Ashby pits the Ultra EFOC against the reigning champion, right? The arrow setup that, up to this point, had stood head and shoulders above all others tested in his massive study.
Yes, the ultimate showdown, you could say. This compares the 655-grain Ultra EFOC with its 190-grain Grizzly head-to-head with what Ashby calls the best-performing arrow.
The best-performing arrow? What was its setup?
It was an internally footed 790-grain arrow, 26.3% EFOC. So heavier, still high EFOC.
But tipped with a different broadhead.
Exactly. Tipped with a modified Grizzly broadhead.
Modified Grizzly. Okay, and that's the key variable here, isn't it?
It's the single most significant variable in this comparison. The broadhead's mechanical advantage. Ashby had previously determined that this modified Grizzly has an 18.2% greater MA than the standard 190-grain Grizzly it's based on.
18% higher efficiency.
And in prior tests, it demonstrated a 26% greater penetration potential just due to that increased arrow efficiency.
So what happened when the best arrow met the Ultra EFOC?
Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the best-performing arrow with the modified Grizzly out-penetrated the Ultra EFOC's average by 24.8%.
Almost 25% deeper.
Yes, and it consistently achieved exit wounds, which means its penetration often went beyond the measurable limits within the animal.
Wow. So the improved broadhead on a heavy EFOC arrow still reigns supreme.
It does. It really shows just how impactful that optimized broadhead design truly is. It elevates the performance beyond even what the Ultra EFOC with a standard high MA head could achieve.
This leaves us with some really interesting nagging questions, as Ashby calls them, right? Perfect things for you, the listener, to mull over.
Absolutely. He lays out a few hypotheticals based on the findings.
Like, what are we left wondering?
Well, first, remember all the thorax hits with the Ultra EFOC arrow fully crossed the chest cavity and stuck solidly into the offside rib?
Right, they reached the far side but didn't always punch through it.
So, question 1. Would using the higher mechanical advantage modified Grizzly have allowed that slightly above threshold weight Ultra EFC arrow to retain enough force to actually breach that offside rib consistently?
Plausible. And if it did?
Then question 2. If it did breach the offside rib, would such a setup also provide consistent exit wounds? Would it effectively equal the penetration depth of the heavier, best-performing EFOC arrow?
Interesting. Combining the Ultra EFOC structure with the best broadhead. And the third question.
Perhaps the ultimate hypothetical. What would be the performance of an Ultra EFOC arrow that had both the modified Grizzly broadhead and the same mass weight, around 790 grains, as the current best-performing EFOC arrow?
Ah, the ultimate combination. Ultra EFOC design principles, top-tier broadhead, and significant mass.
Exactly. These are fascinating new questions for future testing, Ashby notes, and maybe for your own contemplation as you think about your ideal setup. Where do the diminishing returns kick in?
Definitely food for thought. Okay, so wrapping this up, what did we truly learn from this deep dive into Ashby's Part 5 update? For me, the biggest aha moment is just how profoundly arrow design factors, specifically FOC and broadhead MA, dictate the outcome.
Right. It really shifts the focus.
It's not just about raw kinetic energy or momentum. In fact, as we saw, sometimes those can even be inversely correlated to actual penetration, especially when bone is involved. It just flips the script on so much conventional wisdom.
Exactly. This study powerfully illustrates that a thoughtfully designed arrow, even one that's significantly lighter, like the 655 Ultra EFOC, can achieve truly phenomenal penetration. It can sometimes even outperform much heavier setups, especially when you compare performance on similar-sized animals. It just underscores the critical importance of every single component in your arrow system working together synergistically.
You can't just max out one variable like weight or speed and expect optimal results.
No, it's about the whole system. And for you, the bow hunter listening, whether you're just starting out or you've got years of experience under your belt, What this really means is that optimizing your arrow setup, thinking about FOC, thinking hard about broadhead choice is paramount for ethical, humane hunting.
It's about making sure your arrow performs its absolute best when it truly matters most.
Yeah.
Not just on that perfect, easy shot.
Right, but crucially, on those less than perfect shots too, that's where equipment performance really makes the difference for the animal's welfare and your recovery success.
So this really raises an important question for you, the listener, to maybe take away and consider. How might these insights from Dr. Ashby's work influence your own arrow setup decisions going forward?
Yeah. Are there maybe some long-held assumptions about arrow performance? Maybe about weight, maybe about speed, maybe about broadhead type that you might need to reevaluate after this deep dive?
Something to definitely mull over as you plan your next trip to the range or maybe even your next hunt. Thank you so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and stay well informed.